In the late 60s, I decided to walk on a stage and see if that was of any interest to me. And it turned out that I never left, and consequently I've been an actor for almost 50 years now. The truth is that led me to Mr. Muir. I found his accomplishments, his poetic writings, and his tremendous adventures of great interest.
I'm an actor, a historian, a reformed public servant and politician, and I travel the country bringing Theodore Roosevelt to life on stage, television, film, and enjoy doing what I do. The idea that we can learn from those who've come before us, it's wonderful to know that living history is one of the ways we call the genre, that both through a scripted, entertaining performance, but also through interaction and Q&A, when you've got an actor who's also an historian who can fire the mind and the imagination of a new generation of conservationists.
Crazy idea. We did a little land restoration. So we did some woodland improvement, some grassland improvement, and we had lots of people come visit. But it didn't have places for people to stay. So we built some shelters. I built a replica of Henry David Thoreau's house on Wallen Pond, a replica of Aldo Leopold's shack, a camp for John Muir. But once we had the shelters built, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could resurrect those people from the dead? And we could put some life back into Thoreau's house or Leopold's shack. So I did a little research and found out there were people, reenactors, who took on those roles, those personalities. There's the John Muir out there, and there's the Aldo Leopold, and there's Henry David Thoreau. And I called up those folks. I said, come out, let's have a party.
There's a magic in the gobble of the wild turkey, or the booming of a prairie chicken, or the splash of a bass, that only those of us who have experienced it can share and convey to those who will follow us. I hope that each of you will capture that magic while you're here. You know, these are unbelievable experiences that are here for you right now. The call of conservation, you've answered, each of you in your own way. I thank you personally for that. That makes a difference, not just our generation, but to all those who will follow us.
Under the big top Chautauqua, under this big tent, we had a stage. We had at one point in excess of 300 chairs, all of them filled, people standing. And these guys allowed us to step back in time.
And that has been the history of every reservation ever since. As soon as they are created, the thieves and the devil and his relations come forward to attack them. And, well, I doubt not that if all of the rest of our beautiful wilderness were utterly stripped away from us, and there remained only one tree, one tree reserved as the most noble and glorious, well, it would not be long before you would find a lumberman and a lawyer at the foot of it.
And after John Muir, we moved forward and into the time of Aldo Leopold, who gave an incredible and emotional performance. And I think most people in the audience were literally spellbound.
When our rifles were empty, the old wolf was down, and a pup was dragging a leg into impassable slide rock. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. And I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes, something known only to her and to the mountain. But I was young, I was full of trigger itch, and I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, then no wolves would mean hunter's paradise. But after seeing that green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agree with such a view.
We had 500 people show up for the event. Big tent, stage, it was great fun. Great fun. But after that event, somebody said, well, what's next? And we said, well, how about we get John Muir to come back with Teddy Roosevelt? And they do a play called The Tramp and the Rough Rider. And there's a Teddy Roosevelt character by the name of Joe Wiggin who is just he's a better Teddy Roosevelt than Teddy Roosevelt was.
When you're outdoors and you're nearly sort of sitting on a picnic table near a fire, and there's John Muir telling you stories about life in the Sierra Nevadas, I think that can be a very transportive and inspiring kind of thing to experience.
The natural resources of our land.
But national parks and reservations are useful, not only as fountains of timber or irrigating rivers, but as fountains of life. Any fool can destroy a tree. God has cared for these trees, saved them from drought, disease, storm, tempest, flood, avalanche, but he cannot save them from fools. Only Uncle Sam can do that.
The first time we did the play together, as we came near a conclusion, he said, "Joe, you know the best thing about doing a two-man show?" I said, "No, Lee, what?" He said, "It doubles the size of the cast party." And it's been a joy and a pleasure to work with Lee. We hope to have some more opportunities in the coming year. Some of the other iconic conservation locations across the country have expressed an interest in the Tramp and the Rough Rider coming to life.
And we had another event a year later, Tramp and the Rough Rider, and those two events kind of coalesced into this Legends of Conservation idea. And once we imagined a Legends of Conservation scenario, there was no end to it. It was kind of an open-ended, who are the next legends? Who else do we bring to life? Who else do we tell stories about?
Her book is more poisonous than the pesticides she condemns.
So we had Rachel Carson. You just can't imagine until you're there in a live performance to see a reenactor. And in most of those cases, you don't know whether you're speaking to the legend or you're speaking to Kaiwana Lee. It was such an emotional performance that just within minutes you had tears in your eyes.
The book actually offended a relatively small segment of our society, but a very rich one. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent attempting to discredit not only the book, but the hysterical woman who wrote it. Go see it.
It's exciting. I absolutely love, and every time you learn a little bit more about another legend, it just takes you deeper into the story.
You know, over the years, many people appeared in my drawings many, many times, mostly for their questionable deeds and actions, but sometimes people appeared for their good work as well.
We had Ding Darling do a state tour, 5 cities in 5 days. And an incredible performance, and always energy and enthusiasm. So we just kept looking for ways to bring these legends to life.
What I saw was an opportunity to take my advocacy for conservation and wildlife and all those issues to a much broader audience. But I always wondered whether Roosevelt gave me that job just to take my cartoons, many of which contained an anti-Roosevelt message, off of the front page for a while. I took the job anyway. He's a very complex guy. And when I started to write this show, I had no idea. I thought I was going to be writing a show about an artist and a cartoonist, and all of a sudden here's this conservationist that has made such a huge impact.
And I love these reenactors and live performances. There's nothing better than that. But in some cases, there are legends of conservation that don't have people who've taken on their character. There are no reenactors for Hugh Hammond Bennett or John Burroughs, at least none that we can draw on. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could create these cardboard cutouts? They're called standees. But to do it, we needed an artist to step into our midst, and that was Sophie Binder.
Nature and conservation is very close to my heart, and pretty much all the art I do has to do with those topics. I love also to draw or to do art, and that it would be tied to stories, to people, to actual places that have a history or people that have a story behind it. And I've found by doing this that people have a connection to art that is very different than just showing a photo. And it's really nice to the idea that it's going to be an educational tool, and to go to schools. And I think these days we really need the kids to be aware of this heritage that those people left behind.
These were the first pioneers really in the conservation movement, and we're talking about soil conservation, wildlife conservation, consideration for the environment, that all things are connected, even humans are connected to the environment. And they've kind of inspired and led a movement for the most part, and it continues today. So we're looking at things like the social media, the reenactors, the standees, and just looking for a different way to connect.
Yeah, we can raise an army of conservationists, and I'm pretty happy to be part of that, that's for sure.